So good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I run these workshops every year and I split them into the different year groups because there are slight differences in the messaging for different year groups. And because your children are all new to the school, potentially it's your first child in school as well, it's nice to just go through it and explain how the phonics and reading works in case you have a little understanding or you have a lot of understanding, but it's nice to explain what we do at Westcott. I appreciate some of you will know about phonics and reading, so I apologise if I'm repeating things you know, but it's always good to have these messages repeated back to us as reminders. So I'm just going to go through. I'll talk about phonics first and then I'll talk specifically about reading. And as you'll know, if you came to my visits when you're looking for schools, phonics and reading is really important to us. It's one of the key things we teach because it sets the foundations for the all learning and the curriculum. And as you'll see in this quote, it's a really big indicator for future success. So it is really important that we get it right from the start and we start as early as we can and not just teach your children the skills of reading, but the enjoyment of reading as well. So phonics. So phonics at Westcott, we follow the Little Wandle Letters and Sounds revised scheme. All of the materials I'm going to share with you and some of the videos and resources are on their website, and it's a really fantastic website, and they have a parents page with some additional things that I haven't included because otherwise we'll be here too long. But it's a really fantastic resource to go to if you're ever not sure about anything. And also there's information on our website as well, in our curriculum page, in our English page. So that's another good place to go to. But we use Little Wandle's Letters and Sounds, and we chose this because it's an accredited scheme by the DFE, but also we really love the approach they have. And it works really well. We've done it 3 or 4 years now, and we've seen the way it helps the children, and it really puts in those foundations to help them with their reading. So we really enjoy the scheme. They're always improving it and updating it, and we think it really works for the children. So with the phonics, it's all about making the connections between the sounds of our spoken words and the letters that you use to write them down. So we break words down into the individual sounds or phonemes, and I'll come on to the terminology, and then that helps the children to either read the words and then spell them, which becomes a bit more into play once they get to year 2. And it's one of, phonics isn't the be all and end all for reading, but it is one of the toolkit tools that your children can use to help them to read a book. Not all children will use phonics. Some children are just really good at remembering words and learning them. It's quite unusual. Other children do need to use their phonics to help them, and then gradually they build up that sight vocabulary, and then they've got a really good memory of words. But it is a really good tool to have to help them, like I say, for reading, but also their spelling. So it's really important to us that we use the correct terminology with the children, and we do use these words. They may seem a bit tricky, but you know, your children learn really tricky dinosaur names, so this is not that hard for them. And it's important for consistency, for understanding. You don't need to remember these. Your children will probably tell you them when they know them really well, but they'll be starting to hear these words, so you might start to hear them at home. They're all on, like I say, the Little Wandle website if you forget, and I'll be sharing this PowerPoint as well. But the phoneme is what you can hear. So in the word cat there are 3 phonemes, so you break it down to the smallest units of sound. So the phoneme is what you can hear. The grapheme is what you can see. So that's the letter that represents that phoneme. So in cat, you've got 3 graphemes, C-A-T. A digraph is 2 letters that make one sound. So you get consonant digraphs, you've got like ch, sh. And you have vowel digraphs. So your double E is E. So they're digraphs, 2 letters, 1 sound. We do lots of repetition of these. so the children really understand them. A trigraph is 3 letters that make one sound. So for example, IGH, for example, is a trigraph, and it makes the sound I. Then we have split vowel digraphs. So they are in words like, I can't think of one off the top of my head now, where the vowel is split by the consonant. So they're split vowel digraphs. And then the words blend and segment. So when we put all these phonemes together, we blend them together to make the word. And when we're spelling a word, we segment them to be able to write the graphemes and then spell the word. But like I say, your children will learn these, and we repeat them daily in our phonics session, so they get to know them really well. And often they'll say to us, oh, there's a split digraph. So how do we teach phonics? So from the second full week your child was in school, so we had those couple of days and we had a week, we started phonics. So we start really early on because we want to start to teach them the sounds so that we can start building in the blending and segmenting and reading of words as soon as possible. They have daily short sessions, so phonics is taught every day across the school, whether they're in reception, year 1 or year 2. It slightly changes as they go through the school. The session gets slightly a bit longer, and in year 2 there's more focus on spelling, but for your children it's all about the sounds at the moment. There's a specific order that we teach those in, and that you can see that order from we've got examples on our website, or like I say, on the little Wandle page, and there'll be sheets coming home with your children so you can see what they've learned that week. So it's a really important lesson for us. We do it first thing in the morning because we know that's when the children are fresher, more alert, and then we refer back to that learning if we're doing other reading or writing activities, just to revisit and make that learning a bit more sticky. So this term your children are learning the phase 2 sound, and we'll probably work through them at quite a speed, and that's your initial sounds like S, A, T, and we teach them in an order so they can start to build words quite quickly and blend them together. The lessons are really fun, they're interactive, they're engaging, and they build on the children's knowledge over time with lots of repetition of previous learning so that it's not forgotten. This is what the flashcards look like that we might use in class. So they have a side where there's just a plain letter and then one with a picture, and that's to help the children learn it initially, and then eventually they don't need to lean on that so much. And there's a little saying that goes with each letter as well, little mnemonic. So this is just to give you some ideas of some digraphs that I was talking about earlier, and some vowel digraphs as well. So once we get to this, we have a little saying. So soap that goat, for example, for O. And again, that helps the children to remember. And then, like I say, we start to teach your children blending. So that's putting those sounds together. For example, in that picture, you've got jam. So blending them together to make the word jam. So when they're reading, to start with, they might need to do this for quite a few of the words, but eventually it will be the odd word, and it's one of their toolkit to use to help them to decode unfamiliar words. And the aim is to teach every child to blend by Christmas, but some do take a little bit longer. They have to really tune their hearing into it. It's really good if they're saying it out loud, but that's the aim by Christmas, that they're all blending, if not before. Just got a little video to share with you. I hope that the sound is going to work. If it doesn't, please let me know. And this is available on the website as well, in case you want to watch it back, but it's a really good little video about blending. So that's just a really nice little video to explain about blending, and I'll come back to the pure sounds a bit later when we talk about reading. But again, that's really important that we're not adding in those extra sounds, and the children do it as well. And it's really, you have to really stop yourself and really think. So it's a short, sharp sound when you're sounding them out for your children, but really important. Otherwise, it does prove problematic for them when they're blending, but then also when they're spelling, because they add in all these extra letters that aren't really there. So this is just to show you some of the words, the cards that we use, and we use sound buttons, so you can see the dots, and they represent one of the sounds. If you see a dash, then that means it's a digraph or a trigraph. And again, we teach the children that that's 2 letters and 1 sound. But that's just to give you an idea of some of the resources we use. They're not all singing and dancing, because it's not about that. We don't want to overload your child. We don't want their cognitive overload to be to take over. We want it to be that they're really learning the sounds. And we also teach the children tricky words. So these words have unusual spellings. So there's some examples there: he, the, was. There are clues in the words that they can use when they so the initial sounds are often the same, but the rest of the spelling can be quite tricky. So we teach them as tricky words, and they're ones that are really common in our reading and our books. So that's why we have to go over them separately. So the phase 2 tricky words that your children will be learning this term are listed there. And again, that will really give them a really good basis for when they're starting to read their worded books, which I'll come on to. There's a little video, again, I want to share with you about reading tricky words. There you go. So that gives you an idea of the tricky words and how we teach them and why we teach them. And again, all of these videos are available on the website. So there is, like I mentioned earlier, there is a specific order that we teach the sounds in. These are available on our website or the Little Wonder website, so you can see the order, you can see the little phrase that goes with them, which helps with the how the children write the letter as well, or the grapheme. So that's really useful information for you if you want to know. And then gradually over foundation stage and year one, the children build their knowledge of the entire alphabetic code. So by the end of the reception, they will have learned an awful lot of the basic code, as we call it. And then in year one, they start to learn all those alternative spellings for those common sounds that she was talking about in the video. And they, what we call, grow the code. So in reception, it's all about the basic code, and they will learn those vowel digraphs. But as they go into year one, they start to learn the alternative. And then by the end of year one, the aim is that they know all of the sounds, all of the common alternatives, so that we can start really building on the phonics and their writing skills. But again, this is available for you to have a look at in a bit more detail. And then how we make the learning stick. This is the important thing, isn't it? It's no good just teaching it and then hoping they're going to remember that, you know, they have lots of other things to learn in the day, or they've got playtime and lunchtime and lots of exciting things happening. So it's about repetition. Every lesson builds on the prior knowledge, but it also repeats previous knowledge so that they're always getting regular daily practice. If there's any children that find that difficult, then we do keep up sessions with them in the afternoon. And that they might only need to do that once, or they might need to do it every day, and that's absolutely fine, and we build that into what we're doing as well. But it's lots of practice, we make it fun, we make it engaging, and like I say, we do it every single day. And we'll always let you know if we feel your child, if they're really struggling, or any extra things that you can do at home as well. So the phonics is the toolkit into reading. So reading's where, you know, we want the children to be able to read and enjoy reading. And we teach, so how do we teach reading? So once your child has built up some of the code, so the basic code, and they're able to start to segment and blend words, then they will start having worded books, and that is usually after half term. Prior to that, they have wordless books, which I'll come on to. They still have books, but they don't have words in to start with, because we need to build up that code for them so they're able to access it and feel success in their reading, because we want it to be enjoyable. We want them to love reading, because then that will go through their whole school life. So with the reading practice sessions, once they get their worded books, it's timetabled in 3 times a week, and they do that in small groups with an adult, and those adults are fully trained. The book completely matches where they are in their ability. So we assess them, and again, I'll come on to this, so that the book matches their level. So as I said, we assess the children every 6 weeks to make sure the book and the group they're in matches where they're at. And we have a whole host and range of books, from fiction to non-fiction, as well, for them to access. So it really, and they are really lovely books. That's another reason why we chose the scheme, because of the quality of the books. So reading the book at the right level, this means that your child should know all the sounds and tricky words in their phonics book well. So by the time it comes home to you, when they have worded books after half term, they will have read it 3 times in school. So on the first read, we do some decoding and vocabulary with them work. The second read, we do prosody, which is all about expression, and that's giving meaning to reading. And the third read, as well as doing all the word reading and decoding still and practicing those tricky words, we do some comprehension. So we'll ask some questions about the book. Now in foundation stage, when you start getting the book, it's quite tricky to start with, because there's not many words in the book. So we do build it up gradually, the prosody and comprehension. It's all about the decoding and blending to start with. But by the time it comes home to you, they should be able to read it without you having to help them too much, apart from engaging with them and encouraging them. And it should be that you're celebrating in their success. So like I said, they're the 3 sessions. We have the decoding, prosody, comprehension. So reading at home. So the most important thing you can do is reading with your child. And it doesn't have to just be their reading practice book. I'll come on to the other books they'll get, but any reading, if they, you know, and seeing you reading as well is really important. So they know it's something that you see as important and you get enjoyment from as well. But it's so important to read regularly. And we say at least 3 times a week because we know lives are busy, the children might do other clubs. But we say at least 3 times a week and more if you can. So in some weeks, if you can do it every day, fantastic. But we say the minimum is 3 times. So the books that will go home, so you'll have their reading practice book, and that will have the little Wandle Letter and Sound logo in the corner. And inside it, it will talk about the 3 sessions we do, the decoding. It will show you the tricky words and maybe the sounds that are focused for that book. It will talk about processing, have comprehension. So it'll have all the information that we've done in our reading practice sessions in the book. The children will also have home readers. So this is a home reader, it has a home reader sticker on it, and they are colour banded, so it roughly matches to your child's ability, but there just might be some tricky words in there or some sounds in there that the children haven't yet covered. So there might be words that you need to help them with in there, but they should, the majority of the book, be able to have a good go themselves, but they may need some help. And then they have a library book as well that they can choose. So it gives them a little bit of choice in their reading. And again, that definitely is a book that you'll need to share with them because often they're quite tricky. And that again could be fiction or non-fiction. It depends what your child's chosen to take home. So lots of opportunities for reading. If you've got other books at home or you go to the library, then fantastic. Any reading is good reading. Just really important that every time you read, you write in their reading record so we know what they've read and how often they're reading. So reading, I mentioned the wordless books. So to start with, this half term, your child will come home with wordless books. And often I get, oh, I just don't know what to do with them. I don't see the point of them. But the wordless books, while your child's developing their phonics code and being able to recognise the sounds and blend words, it's about handling a book. It's about how knowing about turning the pages, how we look after it. It's about talking about what's going on, so making up their own stories. So they're starting to use the language that they know that may come up in the books once they have the words. And you can do lots of pointing to different things with different sounds just to start their enjoyment. And they're not going to fail with a wordless book because, you know, there's nothing tricky in there that they can't access. So that is the principle for the worded books. And I've got something else you can read for further advice if you would like it. So when you're listening to your child read their phonics book, so that's their reading practice book, like I said earlier, they should be able to read it without help. If they can't read a word, read it to them, but try and encourage them to think about their sounds and blending, and then talk about the book and celebrate their success. And, you know, lots of praise, lots of encouragement. This is what some of the books will look like that will come home. And like I say, they have the logo in the corner. So earlier on, it mentioned about pure sounds and the videos. So I think the basic code, so all those sounds you'll know, and you'll know not to add the onto them. But when we get to the vowel digraphs, sometimes some people aren't sure how to say them. So these videos are on the Little Wandle website, and they're really useful if you just want a point of reference. And just the children love doing them as well, so you could do them with the children and they could be like your teacher, and they would love that. But this is just so you're aware that they're there to help you, so you can hear how the sound said. I know the letter Y is a really funny one because it makes an E sound, E. So that's a really useful video to have, because you might, historically it's yeah, but it's not that that's not the case anymore. So again, reading to your child, these are the shared books. So this is your home reader. and the library book or any other books that you have. So try and make it exciting. You can change your voice. That will help them with their prosody sessions when they get further into the reading scheme, and talk about books. Ask questions. Oh, what do you think is going to happen? Could you use another word, you know, instead of sad? Because they will be starting to develop their vocabulary from other books they read. Oh, that reminds me of a different story. Which story does it remind you of? All those sorts of things. And we can help you with questions if you're not sure. But just sharing that enjoyment of the reading. So earlier on, I mentioned about wordless books, some extra reads that you can do. So Mrs. Clark found these really good blogs that I'll share the links for as well. So what's the point of wordless books? And it goes through lots of ideas about why we do it and what you can do. And if you want some help with knowing what to write in a reading record, but we're just happy if you just sign it and say read really well, or you might let us know if there was a word that was particularly still struggling with the word was. And that really helps us then when we have a look at those. We don't tend to write in them. That's more for your communication with us about your child's reading. So I appreciate I've rattled through that at some pace. Hopefully it's explained it a bit more clearly and you understand it a bit more. I'll be sharing the slides. I'll be sharing the links to different things I've talked about on the website. I'll do that in the newsletter. But does anyone have any questions? I'm taking the silence as no question. If you don't want to ask,
sorry, that was really good. Thank you so much. Just one question. So next week there's another phonics session. Is that in? What's the difference between that one and this one? Sorry.
So, thank you. That's a really good question. So this is me telling you about what we do. The one next week is you coming into class and seeing your child in their phonics lesson.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Come into the class and actually see the session. So hopefully what I've said, you'll be like, oh, that's what Mrs. Holding talked about. That makes sense now. I mean, obviously it's just one session, and I don't do any more of these sessions. I just do this one. And obviously as the year progresses, the phonics does change and adapt where we're growing that code. So the lesson gets slightly longer and they add more into it. I mean, it's never longer than 20-25 minutes. But it will give you a good idea of how it's taught and what we're doing at the moment. And you'll see your child in their phonics session. But this is more all the information behind how we teach phonics, why we teach it, and the reading as well, which, like I say, they'll be doing the wordless books, but later on they'll get the worded books, and now you'll have a bit more knowledge about what's coming home, hopefully.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. If you don't want to ask questions now, but you think of something as you walk out or leave the meeting, then obviously feel free to email into the school. That's absolutely fine. Well, thank you for joining me. I'm going to stop the recording, and then I hope you enjoy the rest of your